This looks like an antler tine whitetail that has one of those kind of knuckles up on the tine. There's marks from it being, looks like a hammerstone was used to hit it here. And it's got some scratching on the top and a whole lot of wear. It's getting a little soft in there, so this is probably sort of run its course as a useful tool on edges due to the marrow showing up in there. This could have been, you know, wedge-shaped piece of wood could have been tied on there to extend that. Due to the fact that there's striking here, it would be easier to manage that if this wasn't just flopping around. If I'm interpreting that correctly, that could have been a tine horizontal punch. Various bone punch notchers and edgers, bone and antler. I think that's North Dakota, and these. This is a split bone that's used as a vertical punch. This is probably a long pressure flaker that could have been used and then also turned into a short drift. Although when they get this short, they're kind of hard to hold. A drift is another word for a vertical punch. Ulna pressure flakers. This is mine. I think this is a very large whitetail. It's worn down to the end. It's not sticking out very far if you're holding it in the hand past that, but was well taken care of. There's a lot of these that get damaged, right, that flake off due to too much force being applied on an edge, on a sturdy edge. The beveled wear on these vertical notchers is sort of how they wear. Here's one of mine that's exhausted. I started finding these tools not because I saw these tools, and there is some of these usually illustrated in journals or archaeological reports, but it's hard to, there's not usually really good photographs. So I just made my tools, and then over the years I started finding them, right? They showed up. So I just made my notchers to work, and I found them in the archaeological record. The dowels, pressure flakers, just composite flakers. You get a lot of power, and you don't have to drill. Here's mine. You don't have to drill into wood. You can just get 2 pieces of wood and split and then scrape out, especially if you're flat on one side. It might make it easier rather than trying to drill into the wood. It's just your generic antler pressure flaker. You can see the little, is that focusing? Little bites and the damage. It's consistent with my antler tine pressure flakers. This is really interesting because I thought that this was a large composite pressure flaker that snapped, right, due to too heavy pressure. But I haven't had this frame. I have this on loan to a friend for years, and I've got it back now, and I'm re-examining this because I had made a bison ulna. This is a really large bison, and the more mature they get, the more the ulna gets fused to the radius. And I cut this off, and I made a horizontal punch. You can see the video. I think it's called Bison Horizontal Punch. And I used it and made a lot of stuff, and it was fantastic. And one thing I noticed is that I got damage on mine too from striking, that the bone flaked and did the same kind of damage. And the bites of this working end are more consistent with a punch than with pressure. I think it's more likely, and I'm not sure that this is a a section of the bison radius, but I think it very could well be. It looks really similar to mine. Although this could be another split piece of bison bone. And mine broke too, or it was just weak. I hit it too hard. And so I think that's probably what that is now. Most likely. This is a plant stock fossil billet. I showed this in my first video. It's limestone. You can tell by the wear on that. That's finishing. That's not used to knock big spalls off. The wear on that was doing careful work. And it's soft and grabby and masked. So it's a nice billet. So, this vertical, this is another one. I was making these. This is a sort of big one. For years and years and years, I used tons of these little whitetail vertical punches to do late, middle thinning and finish for edge work, and putting stuff in different holders and working in different ways. What I found is that the shouldered wear were for bigger flakes and looser support, and then once I got the support more tuned up, I'd use more of the ends. But I was at a napping with that, and somebody says, I've got one of those, and they had a surface find from Illinois that produced this whitetail. It was filed down on this side, but it's got the same consistent shouldered wear as the right length. So it's cool to, and once again, I'm not making copies of stuff that I'm seeing and saying, as I was done, I'm doing these things for hundreds and hundreds of hours, and then I'm seeing that there are some similar artifacts. It doesn't mean that everything I do turns up, but quite often it does, and the details of the fine wear really stick out. I don't have an example, but another thing that I've seen is, and it takes a long time, it's a tool that's not always found, because you can just get a kind of flattish pebble and do the same thing. But if you get accustomed to one and like it, then these pressure flicking anvil stones have turned up too. I know a guy that hunts a single component early archaic site, and he found one that's really similar to that. It might be a little thicker. It takes a while to wear these things flat, and sometimes they get too flat. You can't get enough of a gap. Another thing is these little bitty hammerstones aren't hammerstones, they're stone punches. And when you use a small hammerstone just for direct percussion, you'll get different wear, because that aggressive, pitted, heavy stuff, it's not practical to swing this little bitty hammerstone and to get that kind of damage, but when you're hitting it with a punch, you sure do. And that's another thing that I've seen show up on sites, although I don't have an example here. This is a cute little bird point I found in a Pearson shirt. I don't know why that's in there. And this is also Pearson. It's like an archaic corner notch. Another thing is my drilled shaft punches. I've seen these the same wear came out of a bunch of them in northern Florida. I assume northern Florida, or somewhere in Florida, probably river fines, 20 river fines. But as they get really worked down and marrowy and soft, sometimes they're re-drilled and smaller insert punches put in the end. So you can get a lot of power out of those. Here's a tip I'll show really quick. This is like Dalton. It has like really Cody-like flaking on it. Four stages of pressure, base to tip, with a classic. I believe I haven't looked at this in a long time, but these sides are done first, and then these intrude. So it's very like slow and organized, except for they didn't turn the edges for the second sets hardly at all. And you get some very, very nice controlled flaking. That's really high level stuff right there. It's pretty cool. So I just wanted to show those. I've got a phone call I gotta go. Hello?